Thank you so much. And thank you, Amber, so much for joining us. Why don't you just start by telling everyone about Riide and what it is?
Definitely. And hi, everyone, and thanks so much for having me. So Riide is a DC-based electric bike manufacturer. We design, build, and sell these electric bikes here in DC. For those of you unfamiliar with an electric bike, you can pretty much ride it like you would ride any bike. It weighs about the same weight as a Capital bike share bike. But unlike a traditional bike, it has a small throttle. On that rear hub, you'll see a motor. And underneath the logo is a lithium-ion battery. So you can twist the throttle and it goes 20 miles an hour without pedaling. Or you can do both at once. So for bike commuters, it's great. It helps you get up hills without sweating. It helps you go further distances. And it's an all-around great bike.
How did you guys get the idea of Riide? And can you tell us a little bit about how you started?
Definitely. So I met my co-founder back in 2012. My background's in car sharing. I was working with FlexCar through the merger with Zipcar, and always fascinated with emerging technology in transportation. My co-founder was working in solar and was in China and saw electric bikes everywhere. There's over 200 million e-bikes on Chinese roads. They look a little bit different, but they've completely transformed transportation in other parts of the world. So we were introduced by a mutual friend, and we were just really interested in kind of solving this problem of urban transportation and looking at new ways to get around. And we were fascinated with the idea of e-bikes, but more so why they had not taken off in the US. They've been around for a while in the US, but they've always been marketed as kind of recreation or exercise for an older demographic. They've never ever been marketed as transportation, nor has kind of an affordable, aesthetically pleasing bike been designed. So as we started looking at the market, first we fell in love with the product. We test rode some e-bikes that were already on the market. I live in Glover Park on the top of a big hill. So for me, the idea of biking was always very attractive, but I always had this kind of big barrier around Mass Ave and the steep hill. So we started looking at the problem and thought to ourselves, there's not an e-bike out there that we want to buy, so why don't we try to make one ourselves?
And then how did you get the funding originally to start up?
So we raised a small friends and family round. Actually, before that, we bootstrapped. We took our own life savings and put it into an account and formed the company, bootstrapped all the way through the production of the first prototype, which we're really proud of. Then we raised a small friends and family round, and then we launched on Kickstarter in January of 2014, and that was really the product's first debut to the market, and we were blown away by demand. We had hoped to sell around 25 bikes during the 30-day campaign. We ended up hitting our financial goal of 50,000 within the first 8 hours of launching, and went on to sell 65 bikes, which was pretty exciting.
And what did that fund, that initial round from Kickstarter?
That was really, if people were pre-ordering the bikes. So we launched on Kickstarter. The cost was $17.99. They're now $19.99. So people they were funding the production of the bikes. We probably could not have gotten all the way through production without outside investment, but it paid for the majority of production.
Cool. So can you tell us a little bit where you guys are based here in DC now, just about what you guys are doing, where you build the bikes, how it works?
Definitely. We are located, so we build the bikes in a small warehouse behind Union Market. We're on New York Ave. And so the way the bikes are built, so the frame is actually manufactured in Taiwan. That's kind of the bike capital of the world. It's our design, and we actually go over during the manufacturing of that. But all the components come in from around the world, and then we assemble the bikes, each one by hand, with love, we say. And it's done right here in DC. We just opened up a showroom actually on Saturday, so it's brand new at 9th and U, and that's really just a place where people can come and test ride the bikes and interact with us.
And how many, you build them by hand. How many people are on your team?
We're a team of 5. We have 2 co-founders, a full-time mechanic, a utility player, we call him. He can build the bikes, but he's also great at sales and marketing. And then we just hired a showroom manager / marketing person. And
you're also growing, is that right?
We are growing, yes.
Yeah.
We're growing the user base, and then always kind of, the term is busting at the seams. Mm-hmm. We don't hire until we absolutely need someone because we're still pretty bootstrapped as an early stage startup.
And what has the response been from consumers? I mean, they're definitely costly. So who are you selling to, and who are you interested in selling to?
For sure. So when we launched on Kickstarter, it was a pre-order campaign. It was an expensive product. What we found was that most of our customers were not the demographic we had in mind. We had always thought that our bike was kind of designed with the urban professional in mind, and a lot of people buying the bike were buying it. we sold all over the US and Canada, so it wasn't necessarily, the majority of our sales were in urban demographics, but they were all over, and sort of our customers were all over the map, and most of them were a bit older, and that's probably because to afford a $2,000 toy that you're paying for and then waiting a year for it to ship with this startup that you don't know if they're going to ever ship or not, it kind of made sense that it was a different demographic buying it. A lot of early adopters as well. We were featured in a lot of tech publications, so a different demographic was hearing about us and buying the bike. What we have always thought about, though, is, again, the urban professional and kind of this daily commuter. We tend to think more about a psychographic than a demographic, but this urbanite, everyone in this room probably, people that just want to get around and use the bike as transportation. So we recently have rolled out a program called Riide Pass, and Riide Pass is effectively a lease-to-own program. It's $79 a month, and after 2 years, you own the bike outright. But we see it really as more of a subscription service and the first ever for the bike industry. And so what we found is since we've launched Riide Pass, we've been selling 8 times more bikes, which is really great. But it's also been the demographic that we always thought the bike was built for. So much more of an urban professional, people switching from Uber or Metro and using the bike as a tool to commute every day.
With Riide Pass, how long is someone's commitment for? Is it for a year or is it just a month to month?
Yeah, so there's a $299 down payment, and then it's a 1-year commitment. After a year, if you change jobs or you move or you don't want the bike anymore, you can give it back to us and you're free to go. Or after 2 years, you own it outright, or you can upgrade to our latest model and stay on the platform.
Because I was wondering with weather fluctuations, I'm sure that people would probably be less inclined in the winter. Do you see that people are using the e-bike more are these people who are interested in biking or maybe own a bike also, or are these a totally new demographic to biking?
For sure. So for this new program for Riide Pass, we've sold 100 bikes on Riide Pass. We're kind of doing a pilot, and we surveyed, and 9 out of 10 people are using it for commuting versus recreation, which is awesome. I just love it. And then a vast majority are using other forms of public transportation. I don't know the exact statistic. I would say 10-15% own other bikes. But a lot of people, this is an introductory vehicle to biking. A lot of people have objections to biking, and I can go into those, but so it really is kind of this gateway. We call it the bike for non-bikers. You don't have to be an avid cyclist to get on a ride bike and be able to commute to work.
One thing you said early on is that this kind of the problem that interested you was this question about urban mobility. Can you talk more about what you mean by that and how the e-bike can kind of play a role in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, speaking to my earlier point, there are some major objections around biking. When we surveyed people before we launched Riide Pass was in response to customer demand. People said their 3 biggest objections to biking and to ride were the upfront cost, the fear of maintenance, and the fear of theft. So I forgot to mention, Riide Pass includes unlimited maintenance from our location here in DC, and it also includes theft insurance. So we really saw it as a way to overcome those objections. So I think, from the physical standpoint, there's kind of those objections. There's the objection biking to work that, I might get sweaty, and obviously the electric bike helps with that. You don't have to change or shower when you get to work. But then, mobility is, when you're looking at it from a city perspective, I think getting the price down is powerful for so many ways. It helps people afford a bike, and yes, you can find a used bike for $100 or $200. But for someone's everyday transportation, you want a nice, reliable vehicle that that will be maintained. And I think for a bike, for a lot of people who live in parts of the city, again, me in Glover Park, we don't have Metro. There's pretty limited ways for me to get around aside from the bus, biking, or driving, and I don't want to drive. So that leaves before just the bus for me because I didn't want to bike up a huge hill at the end of the day. And so, with the ride bike, it helps mobility in that sense as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in DC's needs are not really serviced by a lot of the public transit options. So it's great to have something that you kind of control yourself and can go where you need to go. Can you just talk about what are the challenges that you guys are looking at ahead and where you see going with this?
For sure. So from the perspective of Riide or from kind of a community standpoint?
Let's do both. Start with the community standpoint, and then you can talk about Riide specifically.
Cool. Yeah. So I think for us, and I guess I'll backstep. I think I think in terms of, it's really a function of user adoption at this point. So we're creating behavior change. You know, everyone in this room probably has the way that they've commuted to work time and time again, and to try something new is a big ask. You know, you have to change your life a little bit to start biking, even on the e-bike where you don't have to necessarily change clothes when you get to work. You're still, you know, when it rains, you need a really nice raincoat and you need, you know, certain equipment. And I think that's always a big challenge. Intrinsically, we're all creatures of habit, and even if we're not happy commuting the way we are, we're doing it every day, and it's something reliable that we're used to, and so we're going to keep doing that. So I think from both perspectives, from Rides, it's really, we see ourselves as educators. A lot of people have never heard of e-bikes before. A lot of people don't think biking is realistic for them, but now our user base is kind of proving those people wrong, and we have people commuting 15 miles each way by bike that, you know, never thought that was possible. We have people with knee injuries that never thought they'd be on a bike again, and so it's really just an educational process.
We're going to open it up for questions from the audience now. So.
Thanks for that talk. I think this is a really interesting concept. And the most interesting part to me is actually the fact that the idea was born or at least grew tremendously in China, and we've imported that idea to U.S., whereas usually it's innovation here, and then you have the IPR issues where the technology goes abroad. So my question is, you said you designed the frame yourself, but all the other parts are from all over the world. Have you? Are there any IPR issues that you're dealing with? Have you patented this assembly, or I think you get the gist. And also, you still have to know how to ride a bike, right? To use that.
You do. You do have to know how to ride a bike, and we are teaching people how to ride bikes if you don't know how to ride. From an IP perspective, we considered patenting our design. We worked with attorneys. What we see in the bike industry is that it's an international industry, so you need to have international patents. And the ones that exist from companies much bigger than us that could actually pay to enforce them, they're not enforced. So that was kind of what we saw from the market, and so we decided not to invest in that. I think when we talk to investors and we talk about barriers to entry, I can go into those. There's a ton of barriers to entry in the bike industry, and we really see that as more of a protection than actual intellectual property patents or trademarks.
Hi, Shelley Porgas.
Hi,
you talked about the adoption challenge of people changing their habits. Have you considered exporting to a country like Denmark, where well over half of the population commutes by bike?
Definitely. We absolutely. Yeah, so I think there's absolutely markets that there's already that culture. And looking at parts of Europe, actually e-bikes exist there. And it's really interesting. In Europe, e-bikes are a lot more expensive. They're like $5,000 to $7,000, and the culture there adopts them because they don't drive cars and transportation is more expensive and they're used to it. I think we're really excited to expand internationally someday, but right now we're trying to tackle the US market. And I think although adoption of biking has been slow and we would like to see it grow faster, it is growing exponentially in cities all across America, and so we're really excited to tackle that problem first.
Up here in front.
Hello, you have a great concept, and it's earth-friendly, so to speak, that you explore the possibility of federal or state funding for some of your costs? Yeah,
for sure. It's a great question. I think we would like to explore it further, and if anyone knows of any funding opportunities we're missing, let me know. We were the recipient of the DC Tech and Innovation Grant last year, which was really exciting. So DC gave us funding, and it is actually the reason why we opened up our showroom on the U Street corridor, which is awesome. But no, I mean, we're excited about the fact that it is intrinsically earth-friendly and have not explored other funding opportunities.
Okay, and our last question up here in front.
Thank you for what you do. I've been a bike commuter for about 13 years in DC, and the last 5 has been just an unbelievable improvement between Woodley Park and Capitol Hill, especially with the protected lanes. My question to you is, there's pretty organized grassroots organizations in Washington promoting bikes, and it seems to me to be a natural fit for you to be working with them, maybe showing up on behalf of them. Like there's an event at City Hall this coming Tuesday with public testimony. And you know there's a lot of people who would show up for you, and it's another great way to build your brand and share these concerns, because there's going to be nothing better than more protected bike lanes for Washington.
Absolutely. For sure. We would love to be there. We try to be as many places as we can. We're a really small team, but we've been working with DC Bike Party and love them, and are really excited as we grow to have a bigger voice in this community and to be more of an advocate for things like bike lanes. It's great.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. Thanks, everyone.